A helpful thing about patterns is that when you begin to see them, they help you to notice other things. You begin to notice that the patterns bring things together and invite us to compare and contrast. There are many Exodus stories that share similar features, but also that differ in various respects. As they are brought together by the shared pattern, you start to notice the differences and not just the similarities. You might also notice on occasions that there are inversions of the theme, or ways in which the theme plays out and then starts to sour. Think, for instance, about the story of Lot in the city of Sodom. The story of Lot being delivered from Sodom is a sort of Exodus narrative. There's a midnight meal of unleavened bread, angels taking them by the hand and leading them out of the city. There's a threat in the doorway that leads to life for those who remain within and a threat of judgment for those who remain without. They are brought out of the city and brought to the mountain. Now, all of these things suggest that there is an Exodus pattern at work, and yet when you read the story of Lot and Sodom, it does not end well. It ends with the incestuous relationship between Lot and his two daughters. Now, clearly, this is not a positive conclusion to the story. It's a story in which Lot finds himself wondering whether he's alone alive after this great cataclysm, and he's in a cave by himself with his daughters. This is a sorry end, and yet there's an Exodus pattern at work. Recognizing the Exodus pattern, we are able to perceive the divergence and the variation and the inversion that's taking place within that story, and also to contrast it and compare it with the story that is next to it, the story of Abraham and the promise of seed, where Abraham and Sarah are made fruitful as Lot's wife is made barren. The story of Exodus, then, is one that provides a paradigm for many other stories in Scripture, but most of all, a paradigm for understanding the story of the gospel. Again and again, within the Gospels, we have allusions back to the story of the Exodus. We see it in the very first pages of the book of Matthew, for instance. The book of Matthew begins with a reminder of the Exodus. There's a character called Joseph. Joseph has dreams. He's the son of Jacob. He leads his people into Egypt. But then there are inversions as well. Read the story of the king in the land who's trying to kill the baby boys and realize it's not an Egyptian this time. It's the king of the Jews. It's Herod. It's a man who's trying to kill the true king of the Jews, Jesus Christ. Notice also within that story that they flee to Egypt. And then when they come out of Egypt, we're told, "Out of Egypt I have called my son," an allusion back to the first Exodus, but also ironic in the context because Christ has gone to Egypt for refuge from the evil king in the land. Other details could be pointed out. Magi coming from the east, magicians. Where did we see magicians before? Well, in the court of Pharaoh. They were the adversaries of Moses and Aaron, but now they are coming to worship this newborn king. There is an inversion of the Exodus, even as there is a repetition of the Exodus. Go on further in the book, and Christ crosses the sea, or crosses the water of the Jordan as he's baptized and goes into the wilderness. He's led up through the wilderness. He's tested in the wilderness for 40 days, as Israel was tested for 40 years in its wilderness. Beyond that, he teaches on a mountain. He teaches concerning the law, as Moses taught concerning the law at Mount Sinai. In all of these ways, Christ is the greater than Moses, the prophet who was promised. And yet, as we read the story further, we see that this is the full exploration of the theme of Exodus. Christ is the Passover lamb. He's the one who opens up the abyss of death, like the waters of the Red Sea were opened, so that people might pass through on dry land. He's the one who goes before us as the Moses of his people. He's the one who overcomes the great serpent, as the serpent Pharaoh was defeated in the waters of the sea. So Christ defeats the great serpent Satan within the waters of his death.